This story goes back well over a decade, but it's something I've always wanted to share. I was born with a congenital heart condition and had surgery when I was just a kid. I'm completely fine now, but because of it, sports were never really my thing growing up. I was a small, skinny, and kinda clumsy kid because I missed out on a lot of the typical running around outside stuff that most kids do. As you could probably guess, this made me a prime target for teasing and bullying. It was the classic story for a geeky kid who could unthrow a football to save his life. Things didn't get much better in high school. We had this PE teacher who was, let's just say, a bit problematic. He was your stereotypical sports-obsessed dude who got a kick out of making fun of the slower kids. I'll never forget the time he forced my overweight friend to try a gymnastics jump from a trampoline over a vaulting stool. It was obvious he couldn't do it. He fell so hard he cracked his head open. It was awful. By then, I'd mostly made peace with who I was, and didn't let the comments get to me, but it was still stupid. I hated how he constantly encouraged this jock culture, where it was cool to make fun of the nerds. Every single week, it was the same old routine. Basketball or soccer. Now, my specific heart condition means I can't do explosive, reactive sports. I'd have to sit down every few minutes just to catch my breath. You might think, what's the big deal? But being shamed every single week for being the weakling of the class really wears you down. But here's the thing. I actually love sports. A lot. My parents and doctors had always told me to take it easy. But as I got older, I discovered something interesting about myself. I had no problem at all with endurance and steady, long-distance efforts. As long as I didn't push myself into the red zone, I could keep going for a surprisingly long time. So, it's probably no surprise that I fell head over heels in love with road cycling the first time I saw the Tour de France on TV. I was super skinny and couldn't sprint for anything, but I could climb a long mountain any day of the week. I learned how to pace myself, and I could drop almost anyone on a long, steady endurance ride. I saved up, got myself a proper road bike, and started riding. I never told a soul at school about my new passion. It was my secret. And this is where the revenge part of the story begins. Our school organized a sports day. The plan was to take a bus up a mountain about an hour away, and then we'd all go on a hike. But our PE teacher announced an alternative. He said he was going to cycle up the mountain instead of taking the bus, and if anyone wanted to join him for the climb, they could skip the hike. Guess who was the only one to raise their hand? He looked at me completely surprised. He made some snarky comment about keeping up and how he was going to wait for me. But I insisted. I was going to do it. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that this wasn't just any mountain. This was my home turf. The climb literally started just a kilometer from my house. I had ridden up this exact mountain over 100 times. I knew it blind. I knew every turn, every change in gradient, and exactly how to pace myself. I wasn't a pro cyclist, but I knew with absolute certainty that I could probably leave my PE teacher in the dust whenever I wanted. For any cyclists watching, the climb is 12.5 kilometers long with an average gradient of about 7%. Super regular. For the non-cyclists, that basically means it's a perfect climb for a lightweight rider with good pacing and stamina. The day finally arrived. I prepared meticulously. I did my proper warm-up, had my nutrition dialed, and I treated it like it was the most important time trial of my life. I rolled up to the school in my full racing kit, on my sleek racing bike. I was 17 years old, weighed about 55 kilograms, and I was ready. He, on the other hand, was a typical middle-aged, overconfident ex-soccer player, probably weighing around 90 kilos, and he was riding a standard mountain bike. The setup couldn't have been more perfect. We started with about 10 kilometers of flat road before the climb began. He set a pretty hard pace, trying to show off. I guess I just sat on his wheel, didn't say a word, didn't take a turn at the front. I even made a show of taking my time to get back on his wheel after intersections. He probably thought he was going to drop me the second the road tilted upwards. Then the climb started. It became very apparent to me, though not to him yet, that the pace he was setting was already near his limit. But for me, it was at least 5 kilometers per hour. Slower than what I was capable of on that mountain. But I didn't attack him right away. Oh no, that would have been too quick. Not nearly as satisfying. Instead, I started talking. I rode up beside him and started bantering. Wow, someone's getting dropped today. It'd be so embarrassing if the whole class sees me beat you to the top. Then I moved to the front and ever so slowly I started turning the screw. I went just a little bit faster, then a tiny bit more. I knew that after about 3 kilometers, he was deep in the red zone. He was suffering. So I eased off. I wanted to keep him just slightly over his limit for the next half an hour. I wanted to make him suffer, but without dropping him completely. If he started looking really bad, I'd let him recover for just a moment. But then I'd slowly ramp the tempo back up, making it as painful as humanly possible. It was like something out of the Tour de France, a masterclass. In mind games, I do wanna think I've ever enjoyed myself on my bike more than I did in that hour. We were almost at the top, still together. With about 300 meters to go, I finally let it rip. I launched a full-on attack. It was that classic, humiliating sprint that every amateur cyclist knows, the one that just breaks your opponent's spirit. He dropped like a stone. It was glorious. I got my revenge. He eventually rolled up to the top and mumbled something about his bike being too heavy. I just kept my mouth shut, but it got even better. Up on the summit, he was clearly destroyed. He was so exhausted that he had to go vomit in the parking lot. Only a few of our classmates saw it happen, but the news spread like wildfire everywhere. He was so wiped out, he had to sit out the hike he was supposed to lead. And just as he'd promised, I didn't have to do the hike either. So I just sat there with him, quietly, looking at him, and just soaking in the sweet, sweet taste of revenge. I didn't say another word, and neither did he. From that day on, he never made a single condescending comment to me in PE class ever again. The lesson here is simple. Don't bully your students. You never know when they might surprise you. Thanks so much for watching and listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more. See you in the next one.